Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to another Milestone 15-minute feature Friday. Um, and happy Friday to you all. So, a couple people still rolling in, so let's stall for just another 20 seconds or so. But thank you for taking your time out of your day to join today. Today, we're going to be covering um, the dynamic device event handling, which was built into the 2018 R3 and the 9.9 version of the device pack. So it's a fairly new feature. Um, I'll be honest, there's not a lot of bells and whistles to show off here. But it's actually a very powerful feature. So we'll kind of go through it. We'll start with some PowerPoint and then I'll show you a little bit of a live demo. So let's go ahead and get started. My name is Stephen Moore. I'm a solutions engineer with Milestone, based out of the Southeast, sitting here on a decent day here in Central Florida. Been with Milestone just about 4.5 years. So what is dynamic device event handling? How do we define that? Well, in a nutshell, it dynamically adds device driver events into XProtect. These driver events can then be used to trigger any other system event inside of Milestone. So any rule or alarm event. Through that, it basically allows for a seamless, or at least a more seamless integration to any kind of edge analytic or edge event that we may be able to bring in through a camera or other device that we can bring into the system. And one of the nice things about it is it allows these events to automatically be updated based on availability. So after a firmware brings a new feature to a camera or an application is added to a camera or other device, these events will automatically show up. There is one little caveat to that. We'll talk about that in the requirements section, however. So what's the difference between the way we would do this before and the way we would do it now? Well, with a static device driver, basically all events are going to be manually added to the driver by our driver team. So what this is it basically gives us a static list of device events that we can use. Those events end up being somewhat ambiguous sometimes, and they're definitely not customizable. So basically, changes you make on the camera aren't necessarily reflected in the device driver event field. And there's very limited support for any kind of add-on edge applications that can be added after the initial installation. If you did want to use edge applications or other customized features, basically you would have to use something called generic events or some other means to trigger that inside the system. And if you've set up generic events before, and I'm going to show you a little demo on that today, you'll know that that can take a little bit of time and sometimes a little bit of a hassle. It's very powerful. It's actually not that hard, but it is a few steps. So what's different? With the dynamic device event handling, basically events are automatically added to the device driver when they're available. Driver events are more specific. In other words, they're very specific to how they're configured, and they're customized to what's configured on the device. They're automatically updated when new edge applications are added to the system or added to the edge device. And there's definitely a more seamless integration into the rule and alarm engines inside of XProtect. So what does this mean? What does this look like for us? Well, basically on the left, you'll see what the static device event handling used to look like and what our dynamic device event handling looks like on the right. And what I want you to notice on that right-hand side is the scroll bar. So on the left-hand side, with traditional drivers, we would be able to utilize edge motion started, edge motion stopped, simple analytics like tampering or tripwire, and some temperature analytics if they're available. However, that's all we can do. That's all that will ever be available to us. On the right-hand side, our device, dynamic device event handling basically has 30 or 40 different options, and those options can change based on what's available on the device. So what are the requirements? Well, there's one big requirement. You have to have an access camera. So this is only currently supported on access cameras. You have to have XProtect 2018 R3 or newer. And you also have to be using device pack 9.9 or newer. The only other kind of caveat requirement is you may have to replace the hardware inside of the XProtect management client after an upgrade or an access camera application and ACAP configuration update. So it's actually very easy, and actually there's something I want to point out around that as well. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and jump straight over to a demo. So this is our Expert Management client, and basically what I'm going to show you today is I'm going to compare how we would use a generic event to set up a camera set event to how we would use these dynamic device drivers. So let's say I wanted to set up, and I meant to have this logged in. Sorry. So let's say I want to set up an edge application on my camera. The way I would have to do this before the dynamic device driver events is I would have to come into the camera and I'd have to create an event that's going to send a generic event to my system. So basically, come into events, hit add. I could make an application event, and in this case, let's just say I want a line crossing detection. So I can say line crossing detection. And what I'd have to do is basically send this information to Milestone through a generic event, or basically a TCP text packet. So I can send a new notification, and I need to define a new recipient. So in this case, it's going to be Milestone. It's going to be a TCP connection. The IP of my server is 192.168.202, and we're automatically listening on port 1234. And go ahead and hit OK. And then I have to put a message in here. So I want to say something along the lines of line cross front entrance. Now, basically, what the access camera is going to do is anytime that the line cross detection goes off on the camera, we're going to send a TCP text packet to Milestone. So you'd obviously have to set up the applicator, and I'm not going to go over that specifically. But basically, we have to send that event to Milestone. And then inside of Milestone, we have to be willing to accept this. So we have to go to Tools, Options, go all the way over to Generic Events. And I need to add this as a whitelist. So this camera is 192.168.1.211, I believe. We're already listening on 1234. And then the old way, I have to set up a generic event. So I have to come in here, add a new generic event, line cross, and I need to look for a certain expression. So in this case, I'm sending the words line cross front entrance. I can look for this basically in a simple text expression. And then anytime we receive that, we'll go ahead and match that. And what that's going to do is that's going to trigger an event inside the system. That will allow me to write an alarm, or I can go into my rule engine and I can select that event from my external events line cross. And now I can do anything I can do with a rule or with an alarm. I can make an alarm go off. I can make a PDZ camera move to that location. I can make an audible siren go off. Whatever you can do with a rule or an event, you can do. So this is the old way. However, with the new way, all I have to do is basically come into the recording server, go to the event tab, and much like I would turn on basic hardware side motion detection, I now have insight to a number of different events inside the system, and this is where that scroll bar comes into play. So let's see. So I didn't actually set up the line cross on here, but when I was testing this out a little while ago, I think the most impactful one is just looking at the video motion detection profiles. So right now I only have one video motion detection profile right here. I have a profile 1. It's falling and rising. Let's keep an eye on that. I only have one profile. But if I go to my camera and I want to set up a second line cross, or I'm sorry, I want to set up the next, I'm on the wrong camera. Let's see. Actually, I'm going to do this a different way. I'm going to do this on a different camera. This is my backyard camera. I'm going to use our Access Optimizer, which allows us to basically make camera changes directly within the management client. So basically, I'm going to go to my backyard right here. Now I can actually set up this camera directly from within the management client. And if I go to applications, I can open up our video motion detection ACAP configuration. And I can add a couple new drivers, or a couple new profiles. So if I want to add 2 or 3 different profiles, I could change the areas of detection in here fairly easy. But once I'm done, I can go ahead and I think I can just close this. Should have saved. So the only caveat to this is now I have to go back to the recording server, and I do have to do a replace hardware on this. So if I just right click on my backyard camera, do replace hardware, everything remains the same. So there's actually nothing I have to do. As of 2019 R1, we basically, if you've dealt with this before, we've made this process much more streamlined. It basically auto selects everything for you. So we don't have to do anything really, just hit a couple next buttons. And now when I go to the camera on here and I go to the event tab and I scroll down to the video motion detection section, now all 3 of my profiles are available to me. So I can add a profile 3, I can do it for a falling, I can do for a rising. And now I can use any of these inside of my events as well. So instead of going through and creating generic events and setting up all those rules on the camera side, I can basically just configure the application on the system or on the camera, and then come in and just replace the hardware, and all those events will be directly available to me. So now I should have my video motion detection rising available. And now I can create a rule around this and make a PTZ camera move to that location or set off an alarm or anything else, just like before. So that's my very quick demo. So basically, that allows us to really utilize what's available to us on Axis cameras without having to go through hoops and do extra configuration. It basically allows us to use it directly from the driver interface, just like we would any other kind of customized driver event that was already included before 2018 R3. So that's my that's our 15-minute Feature Friday. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to entertain them in the chat or in the question box. I see a couple here. If I can, you want to go back to the requirement slide? Certainly, I'll put that back up. All right, give me just a moment. Okay, so is 9.9 the default pack installed when you upgrade to 2018 R3? I actually don't know what device pack was included with 2018 R3 out of the box. I want to say yes, but I can't confirm that. I definitely know a newer version is included with 2019 R1, but I don't know off the top of my head. After this is over, I can actually look that up pretty easily, but it will take me just a couple of minutes to see what version was actually included. So any Harry asked about Tripwire, any ACAP application you can add to the camera will automatically show up on the list after you configure it and do a refresh. Are there any fees to utilize this feature if the requirements are met? Milestone does not charge any fees to do this. However, many of the Access applications are licensed, so that would be something you would need to ask your Access sales representative. Okay, any more questions I didn't answer? All right, guys. Well, I appreciate your time. If you have any questions, as always, you can always email us here at Milestone here in the Americas regions at presalesUS@milestone.us. We're happy to help you. If there's anything you want to see in the future in these 15-minute Feature Fridays, we'll also be willing to take that into consideration as well. So thanks for your time, everyone, and have a great weekend. And we'll see you again next month.